Yes, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So in the last lecture, we were discussing about chapter number 2 or unit number 2 related to sale of goods. We had discussed so far the meaning of contract of sale. We have also discussed the types of goods and the theory of KV tempter. We have discussed the essentials of contract of sale of goods. And today we are going to discuss the rules regarding the goods. There are certain rules which we should be aware of regarding the delivery of goods. So delivery of goods and transfer of property in goods are two different things that we have already discussed. The delivery of goods is one thing and transfer of property is another. So today we will be focusing on the rules regarding delivery of goods. First is mode of delivery. So how the goods are to be delivered, that is called as mode of delivery. Whether the seller will be delivering the goods or the buyer will be taking the delivery at the shop of the seller. That we can understand from the term and conditions of the contract of sale. Mode of delivery, how the goods will be delivered to the buyer's place. Whether the goods will be delivered in a tempo or in a truck or in a rickshaw, how that delivery is going to take place, that is called as mode of delivery. First. Second rule, delivery of goods and payment of price are concurrent conditions. So if it is not specifically mentioned in the terms and conditions of the contract of sale of goods, then it is assumed that delivery of goods and payment of price are concurrent conditions. Concurrent conditions means at the same time it should take place. Buyer has purchased the refrigerator. So if the buyer has purchased the refrigerator, the contract of sale will be said to have ended or complete when the buyer pays the price of the refrigerator on receiving the delivery of the refrigerator. So that is delivery of goods and payment of price are concurrent conditions. If it is specifically mentioned that delivery will be made in 2 days and the payment buyer is going to make after 10 days, then it should take place according to the terms and conditions. But if there are no specific terms and conditions involved, it is assumed that on the possession of delivery, on the possession of the product, the buyer is supposed to pay the price of that goods or price of that product. Next one, buyer to apply for delivery. Here, buyer is having a right that he can apply for the delivery. Apply for delivery means when buyer is negotiating for the price of the goods, for the price of the product, at that time he can also negotiate for the delivery. That is okay. Refrigerator, the cost of the refrigerator is 20,000 rupees. But it should be, the delivery charges should be included in this 20,000 cost. Now this can be negotiated when the price of the refrigerator is finalized. If the price is finalized, if in the negotiation itself it is finalized that okay, the seller accepts that in 20,000 I will send the refrigerator to your place. That means here we can say the buyer has applied for the delivery and it is compulsory on the part of the seller to bear the cost of delivery charges. But if it is not mentioned, or if the buyer while negotiating the price he had requested, but the seller has not agreed to it, and still the buyer has entered into that contract of sale, at that time we can say that here the seller is not supposed to pay the delivery charges. Next one, risk of delivery. This point we have already discussed. Now this is to be determined from the terms and conditions of the contract of sale. If the term says that the seller is supposed to deliver the product to the place of the buyer, and in transit if any damage happens to that particular goods or product, here we can say that the seller is supposed to pay for the loss. He has to compensate the buyer. But if it is specifically mentioned in the contract that the seller has given a concession of 1,000 rupees to the buyer on a condition that he will be personally taking the refrigerator to his place or product to his place. So in this case, if any damage happens to that particular product, then here the buyer has to bear the risk of that delivery. So that is risk of delivery. Cost of delivery of goods, that we have already discussed, that it again depends upon the terms and conditions of the contract. Delivery of goods contracted for mixed with other goods. Now, buyer went to the electronic showroom and instead of one product, he has purchased 3-4 products. He has purchased the refrigerator, he has purchased the washing machine, he has purchased the ceiling fan, and he has purchased a table fan also. So he has purchased various items, 3-4 items he has purchased. Now, when mixed items are to be delivered, then it is the duty of the seller that he has to take care that while the delivery is arranged, all the items should be delivered to the place of the buyer. It should not happen that 3 products were delivered in the tempo and 4th was missed out, because the seller thought that only 3 are ordered, or 3 the price of 3 is paid, and if it is actually 4 products price is paid, then here the seller's responsibility that again he need to bear the delivery charges for that single product again. He cannot say that I have already beared the charges of 3 products. Now, 1 product which was missed out because of anyone's fault, but now I am not responsible for paying that delivery charges. Now, the buyer should pay that delivery charges. So here as it is very clearly mentioned that if number of goods are purchased by the buyer, and if it is a condition, it is mentioned in the terms and conditions of the contract of sale that the delivery will be given by the, or delivery charges are included in the contract, and it will be delivered by the seller, then it is the duty of the seller that he has to deliver the product without asking for any extra charges from the buyer. Now, delivery to the carrier, or it is also called as wall finger. In constructive delivery, we had discussed that there are three parties involved. One is seller, the other one is buyer, and the last party involved is called as third party. Same is the case in delivery to carrier also. Now, if the godown of the seller is managed by a third party, there is a contract between the third party and the seller. At this particular situation, the seller has to take the responsibility of sending the goods to the buyer, because buyer is not aware of the carrier, that buyer is not aware that carrier is another party, or he is not connected with the seller. So here, delivery charges which the seller is paying to the third party to get the item delivered to the buyer's place is again has to be beared by the seller. Next one, buyer not bound to return rejected goods. If goods are rejected by the buyer, it is not compulsory, it is not obligatory on the part of buyer to return those goods before asking for damages. Can anybody tell me what does it mean? It is very interesting. Buyer not bound to return rejected goods. Suppose if a buyer has purchased a goods and that product is having some problems, and because of that problem buyer is not at all satisfied. In this situation, there is a right given to the buyer that he can reject those goods and he can ask for compensation from the seller for breach of contract. Now, in this case, it is mentioned here that buyer is not bound to return rejected goods. What does it mean? That he can ask for compensation, but no need to return the rejected good. Is it so? Am I audible to all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So in this case, this rule is applied not to all the products, but for some of the products. Some of the products mainly includes, for eatables. If suppose the buyer has purchased sweets, half kg sweets he has purchased, and when he came to his place and when he and his family consumed that sweet, came to know that the sweet been expired and it is not giving the taste which it should. So here in this case, if the buyer asks the seller to compensate him for 150 rupees, 200 rupees, whatever the sweets charges were, here the buyer is not bound to return the rejected goods. Suppose one or two pieces are remaining, and if he goes with those one and two pieces to the seller's shop, and if he gives that one or two pieces and show it to the seller that this is the quality of your sweet which I had just purchased or yesterday purchased, and as the sweet is what we can say, it has lost its original taste because of say it is not fresh, so I want my money back. So here the seller cannot force him that first you need to return me half kg of sweet and then I will return your entire amount, whatever 150, 200, 500, whatever the amount is. So here the seller, without asking for return of rejected goods, he is supposed to compensate the buyer. Last one, liability of the buyer for neglecting or refusing delivery of goods. Liability means responsibility of buyer for neglecting or refusing the delivery of goods. Now, for example, buyer has purchased, say, a washing machine, and according to the terms and condition, it was mentioned that the machine will be delivered to the buyer's place on a particular date at a particular time. So here buyer is aware that after one day or after 2 days at so much of time, at a particular time, I will be receiving the delivery of the washing machine from the seller. Seller informs the buyer on the agreed time and date, you will receive the delivery of your washing machine. Without any valid reason, or in some cases with valid reason also, if the seller ignores that delivery, he knows that it is to be delivered still, if he locks his house and he is not there to take the delivery, plus he has not given the instructions to his, or he has not requested his neighbors or other relatives that today at such time I'll be receiving the delivery of the washing machine, so on my behalf you please take the delivery. So no such request was made, nothing was communicated to the seller by the buyer, and here when the washing machine was delivered to his place, as the place was and the neighbors were also not given any instruction or request, so the machine went back to the seller's godown. Now in this case, even if it is mentioned in the contract that delivery charges will be beared by the seller, seller has once beared the delivery charges. Now again, if it is to be delivered, here in this case the seller may give a clear notice to the buyer that if you want the delivery of the washing machine, now you have to pay the extra charges or the delivery charges. Then only I'll be sending that washing machine. So that is the responsibility of buyer for neglecting or refusing the delivery of the goods. Now, next is the difference between two terms. One is called as condition and the other one is called as warranty. Now, in this unit, that is Contract of Sale of Goods 1930, this meaning of condition and warranty is different than the literal meaning of these two terms we normally know. Now here, the meaning of condition is the main object of the contract is called as condition, whereas the secondary object or not so important object of the contract is called as warranty. So the most important part of the contract is called as condition, and not so important part of the contract is called as warranty. So जो वारंटी अभी तक हमारे को पता है कि वारंटी क्या है, तो वो वारंटी यहां पर नहीं है. यहां पर वारंटी का मतलब है कि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का ऐसा पार्ट जो अत्यधिक महत्वपूर्ण नहीं है, बहुत ज्यादा जिसको उस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट से रिलेटेड वो बहुत ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण नहीं, दैट पार्ट. कंडीशन इज दैट पार्ट कि जो सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है कंडीशन. So that is the simple difference between condition and warranty. So condition is also known as a stipulation, which is considered as the most important part of the contract. If this part is violated by the other party, then two options are available to the aggrieved party. First option, that the aggrieved party can reject the contract, and second option is that the agreed party can ask for damages from the violating party. Whereas, as we know, that warranty is not so important part, and if that part, that is warranty, is violated in the contract of sale of goods, at that time the aggrieved party is having, instead of two, one option, and that option is that it can ask for compensation from the violating party. अगर कंडीशन ब्रेक होता है कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ऑफ सेल में, तो जिस पार्टी को लॉस हुआ है वो पार्टी के पास दो राइट्स है. पहला राइट कि वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कैंसिल कर सकती है, और दूसरा राइट कि वो जिस पार्टी की वजह से लॉस हुआ है उस पार्टी से नुकसान भरपाई भी वसूल कर सकती है. ये हुआ कंडीशन ब्रेक होने पर. वारंटी जो उतना महत्वपूर्ण पार्ट नहीं है कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का जितना की कंडीशन है, अगर वारंटी ब्रेक होता है किसी भी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का, एट दैट पर्टिकुलर टाइम द अग्रीव्ड पार्टी, मतलब अग्रीव्ड पार्टी इज अ पार्टी विच हैज सफर्ड लॉस. तो जो लॉस मेकिंग पार्टी है, जिस पार्टी को लॉस हुआ है, उनके पास एक राइट रहेगा, एंड दैट राइट इज that they can ask for, it can ask for compensation from the violating party. So that is the meaning of two terms, that is condition and warranty. Now we will talk about what is the difference between condition and warranty? First, condition. So first difference is related to purpose. Now, as we have discussed that condition is the most important part. So if this part is violated or if this part goes missing, the main purpose of the contract is not achieved. And if it is not achieved, then it can either be cancelled or the party which has received loss, which has suffered loss, sorry, it can ask for damages also, that is compensation. Now I'll give you an example of a contract where you will be able to find out that the difference between condition and warranty. Now a buyer wants to purchase a motorcycle. He goes to the showroom where the salesperson shows him various motorcycles. Now here, the buyer asks the salesperson that show me a bike which gives an average of 100 kilometers in a liter petrol. And its price should be below 1 lakh. So he has given two requirements. First requirement is that I want a bike which gives an average of at least 100 kilometers in a liter petrol. मुझे ऐसी बाइक दिखाइए जो 1 लीटर पेट्रोल में 100 किलोमीटर कम से कम चलती है, ज्यादा से ज्यादा कितना भी चले। दूसरा जो उसका रिक्वायरमेंट है वो कि उसका प्राइस 1 लाख के अंदर होना चाहिए, 1 लाख के अंदर होना चाहिए। Now, as the showroom was having various bikes of various companies, the salesperson asked him, which bike will you prefer? Which company's bike you are going to purchase or you will prefer? Here, the buyer informs the salesperson that any company's bike will do. दो ही मेरे रिक्वायरमेंट है, एक 1 लाख के नीचे रहनी चाहिए उसका प्राइस, और दूसरा कि वो जो बाइक है वो बाइक 1 लीटर में 100 किलोमीटर से अधिक चलनी चाहिए। अब जब उसे पूछा गया कि कौन सी कंपनी की बाइक चाहिए, तो कोई भी कंपनी की अच्छी डिसेंट सी बाइक मुझे चाहिए, कोई भी कंपनी की अच्छी डिसेंट सी बाइक मुझे चाहिए। Now here we can very easily find out that what is condition and what is warranty. सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट क्या है? सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट क्या है? तो वो पार्ट है कि 100 किलोमीटर 1 लीटर पेट्रोल में चलने वाली बाइक चाहिए। तो ये क्या है? कंडीशन। This is called as condition of the contract of sale. If this is broken, इतना क्लियरली बताने के बाद भी जो बाइक सेल्समैन ने दिखाई, जब बायर उसे चलाने लगा तब उसे रियलाइज हुआ कि ये बाइक 100 किलोमीटर नहीं 70 या 75 किलोमीटर ही 1 लीटर में चलती है। स्पेसिफिकली उसने बताया था कि मुझे ये बाइक चाहिए जो 100 किलोमीटर से अधिक 1 लीटर पेट्रोल में चलती है। मतलब बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट, मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट ऑब्जेक्ट ऑफ द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वाज दैट बायर्स रिक्वायरमेंट इज सच अ बाइक which can run 100 or more kilometers in a single liter, in 1 liter of petrol. And if this requirement is not met, we can say here that there is breach of condition in the contract of sale. So अगर breach of condition हुआ तो दो options available है. One, he can reject the contract, that means he can return the bike, and second, he can ask for compensation also, कि मुझे रिप्लेस करके दूसरी बाइक दो, प्लस मुझे 7 दिन 10 दिन जो भी तकलीफ हुई है उसके लिए मुझे एक्स्ट्रा कॉम्पेंसेशन चाहिए. So both he can apply for. Why? Because there was a breach of condition. Now warranty. बाइक जो बायर को मिली वो बाइक 100 किलोमीटर चलती है 1 लीटर में, मतलब मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट इज कवर्ड, बट दैट बाइक इज नॉट गुड लुकिंग. वो बाइक गुड लुकिंग नहीं है, या उसमें हल्के हल्के से कहीं 2-3 स्क्रैच. सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट उसका रिक्वायरमेंट क्या था कि 100 किलोमीटर से ज्यादा 1 लीटर में चले. दूसरा, अच्छी गुड लुकिंग बाइक, डिसेंट सी चाहिए. अब अगर ऐसी बाइक जिसका कलर थोड़ा सा फेंट हो गया है शायद धूप में रख के, या उसके ऊपर 2-3 स्क्रैच भी आए हैं, तो इस कंडीशन में, इस एग्जांपल में अब ये क्या है, दिस इज कॉल्ड एज ब्रीच ऑफ वारंटी. एंड इन ब्रीच ऑफ वारंटी it can only one option is available to the buyer, and that option is that he can cancel the contract. He can return the bike and he can ask for the money which he has paid for the as a price of the bike. So that is called as the breach of, difference between breach of condition and breach of warranty. Now, difference as to breach. So what happens in the breach of contract, breach of condition, and what happens in breach of warranty, that we have already discussed. In breach of condition, two options are available. One option is cancellation of contract, as well as the asking the compensation from the seller. Whereas in breach of warranty, only one option is available to the buyer, and that option is that he can cancel the contract. Difference as to treatment. Now, difference as to treatment means here, if the condition is broken in the contract, it is assumed that warranty is also broken in the contract, as it is the major part of the contract of sale of goods. So it is treated, if the condition is broken by the seller in the contract of sale of goods, it is treated that as if condition as well as the warranty has been broken by the seller. But in case of treatment or treatment given to the breach of warranty, it cannot be assumed, if warranty is broken, it cannot be assumed in the contract as if condition is also broken. सो जब कंडीशन ब्रेक होती है किसी भी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ऑफ सेल में, देन इट इज अज्यूम्ड कि शायद वारंटी भी ब्रेक हो रही है। पर अगर वारंटी ब्रेक होती है तो कभी भी ये अज्यूम नहीं किया जाता कि कंडीशन भी ब्रेक हो रहा है। नेक्स्ट वन, एसेंस ऑफ द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ऑफ सेल। As the condition is considered as the root of the contract, main part of the contract. If that part is not there, the entire contract gets cancelled. But if the warranty is violated by the seller, then instead of the cancelling the entire contract, that part can be cancelled or that part can be again redone in the contract. Last one is damages. Now damages is available in both the condition as well as warranty. If the condition is broken, then the buyer is eligible for damages. Damages means compensation and cancellation of contract. But if the warranty is broken, then damages, the buyer is not eligible for damages. The buyer is only eligible for not performing the contract or cancelling the contract. So that was the difference between conditions and warranty. Now we will discuss some implied conditions in the contract of sale, and then we will talk about the implied warranties in the contract of sale. First one, implied condition. The examples which we have just discussed, all are the example of express conditions. Express condition means the condition which is either in written form or in oral form. The buyer has informed the salesperson his main requirement while purchasing the bike, either orally or in a written form. So that was express condition. But now we are talking about implied conditions. Here, it is not categorically expressed in words or in oral. But as we know the meaning of implied contract, implied offer, implied acceptance, implied contract. So the same meaning here also is applied, that even if express or written, oral or written requirement is not given, still in some cases it is considered implied conditions are also accepted. Now first implied condition is condition as to title. When a buyer goes to a seller's place, say for purchasing a mobile, he will not be asking a question to the seller that I have First, you just tell me whether all the mobiles which are kept in your shop are owned. Now, this type of question we never ask when we are purchasing a mobile or purchasing any other goods. Why? Because it is implied, it is known to us. If we are going to Mr. A's shop, whatever Mr. A has kept in his shop is owned by the seller, Mr. A. So we need not separately ask Mr. A, the seller, whether you own this item, whether you own this item, whether you own this item. If you say yes, then only I'll proceed for purchasing that particular item. This is not a question we normally ask. Why? Because it is implied, it is understood. We know in advance without anyone asking, without anyone giving us that information, that whatever is kept in Mr. A, the seller's shop, is owned by Mr. A and it is not owned by somebody else. मोबाइल दुकान का जो मालिक है, जो मोबाइल वो बेच रहा है, उन मोबाइल का वो मालिक है. इसी condition, that is called as condition as to. Now if that condition is broken, बायर ने खरीद लिया, 2 दिन के बाद उसे पता चला या पुलिस का फोन आया कि जो मोबाइल आपने मिस्टर ए की दुकान से खरीदा है वो मोबाइल चोरी का है. आपने कैसे वो फोन खरीदा? यहां पर it will be considered as the fault of the seller and not of the buyer. Here the police officials cannot force the buyer that why you have not asked this question to the seller while purchasing the mobile, whether this mobile, show me the proof that you are the owner of this mobile, then only I'll purchase that mobile. Now this type of justification cannot be expected from the buyer. So here the police cannot force the buyer that why you had not asked this question, and as you have not asked this question and you have blindly purchased that mobile from the shop without asking this simple question कि whether you own this mobile, you first show me the proof that you are the owner of this mobile, then only I'll be purchasing this mobile. Here the buyer is protected under a condition which is called as implied condition as to title. Whatever item which is there in a shop, it is assumed that all those items are owned by the shopkeeper and it is not of the item where the owner is somebody else and selling is somebody else, seller is somebody else. So here the interest of the buyer is protected if because the implied condition, because of implied condition as to the title. That is first thing. Second condition, as to sale by description. Condition as to sale by description. Sale by description, very simple. Describe, description was given or the requirement was given to the seller by the buyer. So buyer is supposed to sell those items by description only. The requirement of the buyer is a bike which is of 125 cc bike which can run for 100 kilometers in 1 liter of petrol. So this is how the seller, the buyer is giving his requirement. And if everything is described, he is describing his requirements. So it is expected that the seller should sell the product which meets this description. If this description of the buyer is not met, buyer is forced by the seller to believe that yes, as per his requirement only, the bike is shown to him and the bike is sold to him. Later on, after 1 day, after 10 days, if the buyer comes to know that it was not as per his description at that particular time, he can have two options available. Here, the seller cannot have an excuse that as you have not given a written request, so I am not liable for paying the compensation. So it will be called as condition, breach of condition by sale, condition to sale by description. Next condition is condition as to the sale by description as well as sample. Seller is approached by the buyer. Now seller is wholesaler, buyer is a retailer. Buyer wants 10 bags, each bag of 50 kg basmati rice. He approaches the seller, that is the wholesaler, and he gives sample also to the seller कि इस नाम बासमती चावल का ये नाम है, इस नाम की कंपनी का चावल और इस सैंपल से मिलता हुआ चावल, मुझे 5 बैग्स चाहिए, पर बैग में 50 किलो चावल चाहिए. अगर ये सब बताया गया तो क्या एक्सपेक्टेड है कि होलसेलर ने वही चावल जो सैंपल से मिलता है वही चावल रिटेलर को, मतलब बायर को सेल करना चाहिए. अगर कंपनी का नाम मिलता है पर सैंपल नहीं मिलता है, या सैंपल मिलता है पर कंपनी का नाम नहीं मिलता है, तो हियर द सेलर इज नॉट हैविंग अ एक्सक्यूज that I have delivered the item as per sample. Why? Because there were two requirements. The name was specific, the sample was specific. And if it is broken, it will be assumed that it is breach of condition in the contract. And breach of condition means two options. First option, cancellation of contract. Second option, compensation for the breach of contract. Next one, condition as to quality or fitness. Condition as to quality or fitness. Now, one, quality and fitness. Buyer went to a medical store and he purchased a hot water bag, which is normally used if we are having backaches. For it gives us a relief if we take that hot water bag below our back. So it gives relief in a quick time. So the person buyer is aware of the usage of that particular product. He goes to the medical store and he asks for a good quality of water, hot water bag. The medical store owner, that is the seller, he sells him a hot water bag by telling him that this is a very good quality hot water bag and it will cost you 500 rupees. The buyer pays 500 rupees and he goes to his place. He comes to his place. When he pours hot water in that particular bag, that bag leaks because of the hot water. Now, on seeing this, the buyer again goes to the seller and now he wants compensation or replacement of that hot water bag. Now here the wholesaler refuses, or the chemist or the person, he refuses. No, I will not replace this bag because at the time when you had purchased this, you have not told me that you will be pouring hot water into the bag. I thought that you will be pouring warm water in that bag. So that bag can withstand warm water, but that bag was not built to withstand hot water. तो यहां पर क्या बताया गया कि आपने, मतलब बायर को सेलर ने ये बोला कि अगर आप पहले बोलते कि आप इसमें गर्म पानी एकदम डालने वाले हैं, तो मैं आपको पहले ही बता देता कि ये गर्म पानी के लिए नहीं है, ये अगर जो थोड़ा गुनगुना पानी जिसे बोलते हैं, अगर वार्म वाटर रहेगा तो वो आप इसमें डाल सकते हैं। तो यहां पर ये जो रीजन दिया गया है या ये जो एक्सक्यूज दिया गया है केमिस्ट के द्वारा, दिस is not going to be accepted in the court. The court will treat as the breach of condition as to quality or fitness. हॉट वाटर बैग, चाहे वो किसी भी कंपनी की हो, हॉट वाटर बैग किस लिए है कि वो गर्म पानी को विथस्टैंड कर सके। गर्म पानी में अगर वो लीक हो रही है तो दैट इज नॉट फिट, दैट इज नॉट क्वालिटी, एंड इफ यू हैव ब्रोकन दैट मीन्स two options you are giving to the buyer: canceling the contract, and he can also ask for compensation. कि जैसे ही उसने पीठ के नीचे वो बॉटल रखी कि वो बॉटल लीक हो गई और उस दौरान उसे एक दो बर्न्स भी हो गए, गर्म पानी बहुत था इसीलिए पीठ में छाले आ गए, उसके लिए उसको डॉक्टर के पास जाना पड़ा, डॉक्टर ने 1000 रुपए लिए उससे और फिर ट्रीटमेंट किया, उसका 1000 रुपए उसके खर्च हो गए ट्रीटमेंट, तो 500 रुपए की बॉटल और 1000 रुपए उसके ऊपर और खर्च हुए। तो हियर दैट buyer is eligible to ask for compensation as well as canceling the contract. Next one, condition as to merchantability. Merchantability means the product should be such which can be sold in the market. It should be a merchantable market product or goods. Now, for example, earlier also I have given you this example that if buyer purchases a ceiling fan and when he comes to his place and when he installs the ceiling fan, when he switch on that fan, the fan is producing too much of noise and very less air. हवा बहुत कम है और नॉइस बहुत ज्यादा है। अब अगर ये सीलिंग फैन लेकर बायर वापस दुकान में जाता है और दुकानदार से वो अगर कॉम्पेंसेशन मांगता है या इस फैन को रिप्लेस करके मांगता है, तो इट इज द ड्यूटी ऑफ द शॉपकीपर, द सेलर, either to replace that fan, and if he is asking for compensation, he is liable to pay for compensation also. Why? Because it has violated the condition of merchantability. Very important. The most important function of the ceiling fan is what? कि आवाज कम, हवा ज्यादा. यहां पर the seller cannot give a reason that as you had not asked me कि ये हवा तो देता है ना, इसमें आवाज तो नहीं आती है ना. अगर आप ऐसा पूछते तो सेलर बोलता है बायर को, मैं आपको बता देता बायर को कि इस पंखे में आवाज ज्यादा होती है और हवा कम आती है. तो दिस विल बी टर्म्ड एज द वायलेशन as to violation of condition as to merchantability. Now last condition is condition of wholesomeness. Wholesomeness means the product should not be say what we can say is कोई मिलावट नहीं होनी चाहिए उस प्रोडक्ट में. So wholesomeness without any say मिलावट. So अगर हम लोग suppose normally in Diwali season we come across various news related to that duplicate, that khawa. Duplicate khawa is seized from a sweet shop, from this sweet shop, from that sweet shop. So that is violation of wholesomeness. बिना जो भी हम मिठाई खा रहे हैं या जो भी मिठाई सेलर बना रहा है अपनी दुकान में, वो कैसी होनी चाहिए? बिना मिलावट के होनी चाहिए, होलसम होनी चाहिए. अगर वो उसमें मिलावट करता है और उसे अगर सस्ता भी बेचता है तो भी दैट शॉपकीपर इज एट फॉल्ट. डुप्लीकेट खवा यूज करके गुलाब जामुन बना रहा है. नॉर्मल गुलाब जो रेट है गुलाब जामुन का वो दूसरी दुकानों में 400 रुपए, ये दुकानदार 300 रुपए किलो में गुलाब जामुन बेचता है. अगर खराब खवे की वजह से किसी का पेट खराब हो गया, कोई हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट हो गया और वो व्यक्ति अगर उस दुकानदार के पास जाता है और उससे कॉम्पेंसेशन मांगता है, तो यहाँ पर दुकानदार ये नहीं बोल सकता मैंने 100 रुपए कम करके मिठाई बेच रहा हूं. आप अगर बोलते तो मैं आपको बता देता कि ये डुप्लीकेट खवे की मिठाई है इसीलिए 300 रुपए में बेच रहा हूं. अगर आपको ओरिजिनल खवा की मिठाई चाहिए तो 400 रुपए किलो में आपको गुलाब जामुन मिलेगी. आपने ये पूछा नहीं, मैंने बताया नहीं, तो इसीलिए अब मैं रिस्पॉन्सिबल नहीं. तो यहाँ पर दिस एक्सक्यूज अगेन इज नॉट गिवन बिकॉज इट इज कंसिडर्ड एज द वायलेशन ऑफ होलसमनेस. आप किसी भी खाने की चीज में मिलावट नहीं कर सकते. अगर मिलावट होती है, उस मिलावट की वजह से किसी को कोई तकलीफ होती है, तो हियर द सेलर इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल and he is always held responsible. No excuse. Why? Because this is considered as the breach of condition, the most important part of the contract of sale of goods has been violated by the seller. It is assumed so. That is why two rights are given to the buyer. One is that he can reject the contract, that is cancel the contract. The other one is he can ask for compensation too. Now the next one is implied warranties in a contract of sale. So as it is already 7, we will stop here, and in the next session we will discuss about implied warranties in the contract of sale. Next we will be discussing about the rights of an unpaid seller, and that will end our chapter number 2. So in the next session, we will end our chapter number 2 and we will start with chapter number 3. So thank you everyone for being present in today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.